we have with us today the chairman of Dairy Policy, Dr. Rajendra Shende sir, here with us. Welcome you, sir.
Namaskar. Going to United Nations from such small village is a huge story. It's not a question of only green surrounding.
Right.
There are green lessons. So the sustainable way, when you utilize those natural resources, you will always find that there is a peace.
So, sir, according to you, what are the biggest environmental issues are at stake right now?
I think obviously climate change.
Yeah.
What has happened in the climate change, the basic science says that we are keep on increasing what is called as a greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide
Right.
contributes to 80% of the, let's say, climate change. And that carbon dioxide comes from burning of the fossil fuels. And the fossil fuel is again a natural resource. So
Right.
those who have it, let's say Middle East countries, see all the Middle East countries before, let's say, 20th century, they were in a peace.
Right.
They were poor, but they were in a
But they were in
peace.
a peace. Very
Because
true,
they didn't find that they are sitting on oil resources. The moment they saw that there is too much of oil there, the war started.
sir. Right.
So this again, I say that the biggest problem, climate change, is contributing to the affecting the peace that we have, and it is now almost we have crossed that limit of impacts of climate change. We have been seeing it even today in Maharashtra.
Right.
You have that mudslides coming up, floods coming up, and then when floods will go, we will have droughts to come up.
Very true.
Then there are wildfires which are going on around. It is all due to the climate change. That is a manifestation of climate change, and that is the biggest issue which is affecting you and me in a direct way. We are not realizing it. It is like a slow poison.
Very true.
We feel that, okay, this will be only during the monsoon season, floods and all that. Once the monsoon season is over, what is going to be the impact? We are going to be happy. No, you are not going to be happy, because food security and the production of grains or agricultural produce is going to get affected in a very sure way due to the climate change.
Absolutely.
And this is being documented on a regular basis by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, for which I worked.
Yeah.
And today, in 2007, IPCC, this panel,
Yes.
which regularly produce mainly 3 volumes. One is on a science of climate change, another is the impact of climate change, and third is a solution for the climate change.
Wow.
Now, these 3 volumes, they regularly keep on giving the information, and in 2007, it won the panel. The panel won Peace Prize.
Wow.
Now, many people think that what panel has done for the peace? They produce the climate change reports. But they produce climate change reports because you and me will understand that peace depends on that
Absolutely.
natural resources.
Yes. Yes.
And I was part of that IPCC panel,
So that's great.
which got the Nobel Peace Prize. And I have the certificate of IPCC's Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
That is at the entrance of my house.
Great, sir. Great, sir. So, will the remedies to climate change be worse than the disease? Will it drive more people into poverty with higher costs?
I have a definite answer for that.
Yes, sir.
It will not. I will give you some examples instead of just
Yes.
saying that it will not. Look, when you start producing electricity by solar panels, you start altogether a different business.
Right.
So you have an oil industry, coal industry, and then you have a solar industry.
Right.
And the reports produced, they say that the potential of employability in a solar panel industry is much more than that in a fossil fuel, oil or coal industry.
Right.
People have documented this, that in the last few years, the employment in a solar is much more than employment in oil and coal. So one is the employability, and that is employability is a big problem in India as well, because we produce so many engineers, we produce scientists, and many of the engineers, they are left behind because there is no job. And the renewable energy is one of the sectors where the job will increase exponentially.
Right.
It's been well documented. It's been documented by United Nations, private industry, and even the industry like Exxon, which is basically oil industry. They also started admitting that yes, it is true. That's why today the Saudi Arabia and UAE, when you go there, they don't talk much about oil. They may be getting a money due to the oil, but they are putting their lot of projects mainly in the solar industry.
Right.
So imagine an oil producer getting into the renewable energy is a revolutionary thing, and it is because solar industry is going to help us in our economics, in our employability, in increasing our income from now, and on top of that it doesn't produce greenhouse gases.
Right.
It is the energy from the nature. We only try to accept it in a solar panel.
Right.
That is the thing.
So, for the environmental police, is there anything we can do about climate change, according to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
My organization, Air Policy Center, has recently started for the youth in university, and including your MIT ADT and MIT WPU, they have taken a pledge of what is called as a not zero, net zero.
Wow.
That means, and that answers your question, that reducing the emissions is not required to go up to zero. See, before the climate change, carbon dioxide was still there. Carbon dioxide has a cycle in our nature.
Right.
That carbon dioxide is absorbed by the trees. When the trees fall or they get burned, again that carbon dioxide is emitted. So there is a carbon dioxide cycle. The example I gave is about the tree, but there are many other examples where the cycles of carbon dioxide take place. So the question now is how the environment is related to the climate change. That was your question, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Now, the point is, the more you degrade the forest, the more you contribute to what is called as carbon sink degradation. Means you don't allow the carbon dioxide to get sucked in the or sinked in the trees. And then what happens is that carbon dioxide keeps on accumulating, and then they have the impact of whatever you see today, the drought, the floods, and so many other things which are coming up now. The ocean temperature keeps on increasing, and then oceans become acidic. Now, there is a one scenario which has said that due to this environmental change, the climate change will make the oceans acidic and all marine life will get destroyed. There are about 10% of the world population depends only on fish.
Very true.
They won't have a fish if the ocean gets acidic.
Absolutely.
So, it affects the environment, it affects the health, it affects the food security. So, the issue is much deeper than just a relation between environment and the climate change. Instead of environment, I will use the word ecosystem. In ecosystem, human beings are there. Many people say, oh, environment is a separate subject and human beings is a separate subject. You are so intricately linked to each other that environment, instead of environment, if you start saying ecosystem, then you are really equating the whole planet to the issues of climate change. That's number one. So, number two, a small thing like air pollution. Now, today as per WHO, there are 7 million people die every year in the world due to the air pollution.
Right, sir.
India and China are ahead in the deaths of air pollution, but the developed countries also do the same thing. But air pollution and climate change are the two sides of the same coin, because you burn coal, you get carbon dioxide, but you also get a particulate matter,
right?
Unburned coal, and that increases your pollution much higher. Now, 7 million people dying every year due to the climate change is not a small thing, because today, just in 2 years, we had a COVID which are about 4 million people affected, but 4 million I think died. About 200 million are affected. So, air pollution every year does 7 million. It is more than just a pandemic. So, air pollution also is another pandemic. So, we are in fact surrounded by many pandemics which people do not realize. You only know that is a COVID-19 which is pandemic.
Right.
Climate change is a pandemic. Air pollution is a pandemic. And inequity, the difference between the rich and poor, is also a pandemic.
Wow.
And there is no vaccine to the climate change. There is no vaccine to the air pollution.
Very true, sir. Very true, sir. So, why do people question the science of climate change, according to you?
I think we have gone beyond that. Except the owners of the oil industry and the coal industry, nobody else suspects it. But as I gave you example, even a Middle East country which are the owners of so much barrels of oil within the land or within the soil, they also started agreeing to this. See, it all started in 1992 during the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, where you had first United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. So, convention came at that time. The Paris Climate Agreement in the form of agreement came later on. But from 92 to now, the people who do not believe in science are consistently reducing.
Right.
Even when President Trump was there for USA less than a year back, he was opposing the science of climate change.
Okay.
But the survey done in USA at that time clearly said that 70% of Americans believe that there is a climate change.
Right.
So, that percentage is now reducing. So, there is no doubt now. Those who do not want to believe it in a dogged way, like some people do not want to take a vaccine today, but that number is decreasing now, right?
Right, right. Very true.
So, same is true for the climate change.
Yes, sir. So, what is the right technological process to put in the place of mine exploitation that respect environmental protection?
I think it is not a question of only our mind. I think it is what surrounds you.
Okay.
And I come back to the rural background. I think that technology is to understand the balance of that's what. You talked about mind and technology, right? Both. Right. What kind of things should be there? So, the mind has to be built in such a way that you start respecting nature. That is first. A tree is worth worshipping, not only the idol, right? So, that is number one. That is a mindset. And the moment you start respecting the nature, then you won't destroy the nature. That's number one. Number two is, we are entering into another subject which is called as a nature's technology. We never understood. We think that digital technology or algorithm or all the video shooting and cameras, these are the technologies. These are not technology. We are not even understood how to absorb carbon and produce a photosynthesis process.
Right.
We have not understood that. Nobody is able to replicate that.
Right.
So, this particular plant absorbs carbon dioxide and produces a food and nutrients that we have not understood. So, we have not understood many technologies which nature presents to us.
Right, sir.
And those are the technologies that we need to understand. How a tree stands full time in the broad sunlight, whereas you and me cannot stand.
Right.
We should learn from the tree, right?
Yes.
I mean, I also see that how the honeybees work, we have not understood it well. A line of ant,
right?
How they go in a disciplined way. Whereas even in a vaccine line, we don't want to stand all the time. We keep on shouting why the queue is not moving.
Right.
You have not seen the ants shouting because somebody is breaking the line.
That's absolutely great, sir.
So I think there is a need to understand the nature's technology in order to solve the nature's problem or climate change.
Yes.
And it is not a technology that we just invent or discover it. Just to give you a small example, a bulb, a filament bulb
Right.
by Thomas Edison.
Yes.
We all loved Thomas Edison, right? Saying that it gave a light. You just
Right.
push the button and you get a light. And then about 10 years or 20 years back, we learned that that technology is of no use because it produces 90% heat and 10% light.
Right.
So, it's the most inefficient way of getting the electricity or using the electricity. And that's why LED came,
Very true. Sir.
right?
Very true.
But maybe we should do a research on what is called as the light giving insects that we see around, where that light comes from.
Right.
Maybe if we study it, we will try to find a way that this is another way of doing the light. LED of course uses I think 80% less energy than the filament lamp, and probably we start using nature's way of lighting, we can get even more efficient.
Very true.